Good afternoon, everyone. So yesterday, we were trying to understand this probability distribution function and its cumulative probability for reserve estimates, where we talked about P10, P50, and P90. So what P10, 90 or P85 or P50, P10, P15 means? Okay. So basically, when we say P90, so what P90 means that there is a 90% probability there is 90% probability for the correct answer or correct reserve in this case to be in to be between this value, okay, P90 and maximum. So in this case, what we are considering is this as this value. Okay. Okay. So okay, I think I had shown this in the previous graph, this one. Okay, so that is what we mean. So P90 or P50 means there is a 50% chance, there is a 50% probability that the correct value is between P50 value and maximum value. Okay. So I hope that terminology is clear. Okay. So P90 is the low estimate, okay, and P10 is the high estimate. P50 is your mean estimate. Okay. So many companies follow these P90, P10, P50 for reporting purposes. Okay, for reporting purposes, whereas they might follow some different number for internal purposes, like here P85, P15. Okay. Now, yet another thing that we discussed yesterday, or I showed, not discussed properly, but I showed you these 4 different cumulative probability estimates, 4 different cumulative probability estimates, where 1 and 2, it's kind of in the development phase, because you have this 100% cumulative probability for finding some reserve. Yeah. Okay. And of course, number one curve is towards more mature field, because as you can see that there is very less difference between P90 estimate and P10 estimate. If you draw this P90 here and P10, let's say if I draw this one here, so the difference between the two is not that big. Okay, so it is more like it's towards a kind of develop. It is midway in the development phase, because you know more and more about the reserves. Whereas if you look at number 2, for P90 and P10, to draw P90 and P10, there is a huge uncertainty. Yeah? And of course, this uncertainty could be due to one or two major parameters about which there is uncertainty. Of course, it is again discovered well, but since it has not been appraised properly, or still there is a lot to appraise, therefore there is uncertainty in their estimate is quite large. Okay? The difference between P10 and P90 is quite large. Okay. Now, typically, P90 and P10 difference between your uncertainty can be estimated from P90 and P10 reserve if you have a ratio between the two. Okay, if you have the ratio between the two, or probably P10 over P90. I think P10 over P90. So if you do this P10 over P90, and if it's more than 3 times, if it is number, you have better confidence in your reserve estimate. Now, if you look at the curve number 3, the curve number 3, as you can see that it's more of a discovery, exploratory area, because exploratory area may be adjacent to some known basin, or because still you have quite a good estimate of occurrence of a reserve for 3. But if you look at number 4, looks like there is a huge uncertainty, and here it's saying that your reserves could be as large as 400 million or maybe none. So this may be a new basin where you are trying to enter, which may look very prospective, maybe biggest structure, but you have no clue whether this structure is going to hold any hydrocarbon. So you have, as you can see, that is a huge uncertainty in this case. Okay. So P10 over P90 is again a very good number to show about the confidence you have in your estimate. So P10 over P90, typically if it's less than 3, then you have pretty good confidence. Okay. So now what I have been telling you all the time is reserve. But what is this reserve and what is this resource? Reserve is only reported for the case of development. That means you have this reserve that you are going to report, which you can monetize it. Okay. So there are also terms called 1P, 2P, and 3P. These terms 1P, 2P, 3P. Let me bring that slide up here. Okay. Hold on. This one. Okay. So 1P, 2P, 3P. 1P is proven, 2P is proven plus probable. Okay. 1P is proven, 2P is proven plus probable, and 3P is proven plus probable plus possible. Okay. Now, still there has been kind of ambiguity in which number to report to which particular agency for particularly from economics point of view, right? Because as a company, if you say that I have 10,000 barrels of reserve, and one person says I have 1 million barrel of reserve. Okay, so what is that basis? Okay, so basically they have to report to some agency. In India, that is reported to DGH, Directorate General of Hydrocarbons, because they are the main keeper for this. Hold on. Hi, sir. Good evening. अच्छा अच्छा नहीं ठीक है मैं अभी करा देता हूँ सर आ जाएंगे ओके ओके मैं अभी करा देता हूँ ठीक है अच्छा अच्छा श्योर मैं ध्यान रखूँगा okay so this is about so now what happens is what you have now is what you call PRMS guidelines, and as I said, these results are reported to in India, that is reported to DGH, right? And so what I'm going to now show you is, let me remove all this. what is called PRMS, Petroleum Resource Management System, PRMS. Okay, so this PRMS was published in 2011, and this is 2018. There are certain changes which we can, later I will tell you what those changes are. But let's try to understand this the basis of this PRMS guidelines. Okay, Petroleum Resource Management System, PRMS. Now, as you can see, that this entire guideline was sponsored by SPE, AAPG, WPC, SPEE, SEG. Okay, that was in 2011, and later on you also have these EAGE also came along. APG, which is this Society of Petrophist. Oh, SPWLA. This is SPWLA. Okay. So, Society of Petrophist and Well Log Analysts. Okay, that also came along, and this was then published in 2018. Now, though this is a kind of advisory kind of thing that these societies have published, but different governments can have their own set of rules. Okay. However, you should know what is this international guideline, and then also follow what is the practices in your here in India, or if you work for any MNCs in those countries. Okay, different countries may have different guidelines for reporting of petroleum resources. Okay, now I have been kind of interchangeably using these reserves, resources, and all these. Now, what are these? So let us try to understand how these things have been defined. Okay, so let us look at that. So what is this PRMS? It's a common language for project resource maturation status. If you report any number, then person understands what exactly you are talking about. Okay. Potential outcomes to the various entities, brings transparency. Okay. Now let me tell you, this is very, very important thing to understand. Once Shell, okay, Royal Dutch Shell, maturation status, meaning when you okay, yeah, when you start any basin project. Okay, let's say you did some geological studies, and then from based on several ideas, you say, okay, I have this much of area, and probably I get this thickness, I'll have this much porosity, this much of this much of hydrocarbon saturation, and therefore you will come up with some number. Based on your some geological parameters, okay, in the very beginning. But then, let's say you had some 2D seismic survey, And from there, again, you started doing some reserve estimate. So when you did that, of course, you have some better control on your area, thickness, and all these. Now, let's say you have certain areas and then you did some 3D survey. And from 3D survey, now again, you have some better control on your subsurface images. So then again, you calculated your reserve estimate or resource estimate. Okay. Area, thickness, porosity, all this. Then let's say you drilled a well. From there, you got some more numbers. Okay. And so this is what your project is maturing. Okay. That means you are getting more and more data and you are updating your numbers. Okay. So that is project maturation. Okay. So your resource estimation is getting matured over a period of time. Okay. Is that clear? This maturation has nothing to do with source rock maturation, where you are going for, VRO and all those, okay? No, not that. So your project is getting matured. Okay, so I was trying to give you this idea about bringing transparency. So, companies are required by SEC to report their numbers. SEC, Security Exchange Commission in USA. So they are bound by these rules to report some numbers for their reserves, so that shareholders know what is the what is the status of the company, right? So what happened is, they had a typical, economic guy working for this kind of, reserve estimation and things like that. They did not have a strong petroleum engineer or geoscientist working for a reserve estimation. So what happened is they reported a number to SEC, which later on was investigated, and then they had to cut their number by another 10%. Okay, so they were forced to reduce their number because it was found that they did not report it correctly, and so when they had to reduce their number, ultimately what happened? Immediately their share price went down. Okay, share price of the company went down by another 20% immediately. So that's the kind of implication it has. Okay, it's like how much resource you have with you. Okay, that is what fetches money. And so if you give this wrong numbers, okay, for some reason or the other, probably you did not understand how these things are calculated, and therefore to bring this PRMS guidelines also brings transparency, as it requires assessment of various criteria. How you do that? Okay, classification and characterization of resources, very, very clearly defined classification and characterization of resource. Evaluation considers your risk of geologic discovery, technical uncertainties, and chance of commercial success. All these things it considers while computing some number. Okay. So that is why you have now what is called PRMS. And in fact, you can download this entire document from either SP website or anywhere. If you just type in Prms Guidelines, you will find it. The question is, are there any punishing laws on hiding the resources or showing less? Well, I do not really know what are the punishing laws, but if you do something wrong, if you hide your numbers, why would you hide? Many times you do not report something because you may not have confidence. But if you really hide something and you do not report, many times what happens also is, let's say today I have $10 billion 10 billion barrel reserve. Okay, and if I, let's say, found some big reserve, I just cannot go and report the entire thing like 20 billion barrel reserve. Okay, these things are done particularly from the point of view that you do not want your shareholders to have expectations going very high and going very low. Okay, there should be some continuity. Okay, if, let's say, in last 2-3 years, if somebody is saying that, yeah, you are growing, let's say, by 10% of your reserves or resource, you immediately do not want to show that you have grown by 100%. Because if you show that today you've grown by 100%, next year probably it will be 0. Okay. So what you want to do is, that's where management comes in. How much should be reported and how these things are important. Okay. So that the market expectations, okay, should also be maintained. Okay. It's not, I don't think it's about cheating, but it's about managing expectation from shareholders. Okay, and also probably you want to do your internal calculations in a robust way. Okay, let's say if somebody gets 6 CPI in one semester, and in another semester that person gets like 9.5, everybody will be like, huh, how did that happen? Hai. So no, it's not about avoiding excessive taxes. Okay, I don't think it's about avoiding taxes. Excessive taxes, of course, there are some laws on windfall, gains. Windfall gains, if you have, then there is some extra taxes that goes with it. But there are too many complications. It's not that simple. Okay, it's not that simple how much reserves you are reporting. Okay, it's not that simple. Of course, this PRMS guidelines tell you about how to include these uncertainties: quantities of petroleum and associated products in terms of volume, mass, or energy associated with exploration, appraisal, and development. So, all these things, it tells you how to do this. Commercial chance of project implementation, technical, economical, regulatory, legal. Now, as you heard me saying, resource all the time. Now, so here is your PRMS classification framework. The term resources, as used herein, is intended to encompass all quantities of petroleum naturally occurring within the Earth's crust, both discovered and undiscovered. Look at this. Discovered and undiscovered. It's like that is resources, okay? Whether recoverable or unrecoverable, doesn't matter, okay? In resource, whether it's recoverable or unrecoverable, doesn't matter, okay? It's discovered and undiscovered. Plus, those quantities already produced, okay? If you have already produced, that also, so that is your resource. Further, it includes all types of petroleum, whether currently considered as conventional or unconventional resource. Okay, whether it's conventional or unconventional. Combining all these, what you have is called resources. Is this clear? I hope it is. Okay, so maybe you want to just read through that once again. The term resources, as used herein, is intended to encompass all quantities of petroleum naturally occurring within the Earth's crust, okay, both discovered or undiscovered, plus those quantities already produced, and that is, undiscovered, whether recoverable or unrecoverable. Okay. Further, it includes all types of petroleum, whether currently considered as conventional or unconventional. Okay, all combined. ठीक है? So, here is this chart, very, very important one. Okay. See what it has. On the left-hand side, this entire thing here is called total petroleum initially in place, TIIP. Okay, total petroleum initially in place. Now that total petroleum can be either undiscovered or discovered. Okay, undiscovered or discovered. When you have undiscovered, you have either prospective resources or unrecoverable resources. Okay, either you have prospective or unrecoverable. When you have discovered resources, look at this. Here you may have unrecoverable or sub-commercial or commercial. Sub-commercial is also, you are saying this is contingent resources, okay, and those commercial ones, calling them reserves. Now, even in that, now you have a range of uncertainty. That means when you have on the left-hand side, you have low uncertainty or you have high confidence, whereas on the right-hand side you have low confidence or high uncertainty. So therefore, you have this 1P, 2P, and 3P for reserves. Okay, 1P, that is what is that? P90. Okay, that is P90. Okay, P90 is written here. Okay, at the bottom. 2P is P50 and 3P is P10. Now, from this 100% to P100 to P90, what you have is proved reserve, that is P1, and then from 1P to 2P, that is probable. Okay, so you have proved plus probable here. P3, that is possible between 2P and 3P, that is possible. Okay, so P1, P2, P3. Got that? Similarly, you have C1, C2, C3 for contingent resources. Okay, that is for contingent resources. Let's say you have some resource which is sub-commercial at this time, but let's say, if oil price goes up, that becomes commercial. Let's say if technology becomes cheap, that becomes commercial. So that is your contingent resource. Okay, and then undiscovered, you have 1U, 2U, and 3U, or P90, P50, and P10 case, wherever as it's applicable. Okay, and so here it's shown going from bottom up, it's increasing chance of commerciality, and on the horizontal axis, basically you have range of uncertainty. And of course, above commercial, you have this production, which is already you have reduced, but that is also in discovered PIIP. Okay, you have sub-commercial, commercial, and already produced. Is this clear to everyone? This PRMS framework for your reserves and resources. What is prospective resources? What is contingent resources? What is reserves? Is this clear to everyone? Now, and there are a lot of words, okay, but you want to understand these things very carefully, because these are written very, you do not want to change these statements. These are very, scientifically written. Okay. Look at this. Each and every word. Reserves are those quantities of petroleum anticipated to be commercially recoverable. Okay, that is anticipated to be commercially recoverable. Now, let's say you do this today, and still there is, you have a reserve which you are calculating based on certain oil and gas price. Okay, today that is commercial, but let's say tomorrow oil price goes down. Okay, so what happens to your reserves? Are you immediately going to say that no, my reserves have gone down? So all these management practices, you have to see how we can do this. typically, when you do reserve estimation, a company-wide certain oil and gas price is taken for the commerciality. Okay. So even though, let's say today, if $55 per barrel, there is oil, and maybe some companies may be doing their reserve estimate based on $20 per barrel or $30 per barrel. Okay, you cannot do this reserve estimation today saying 55, and tomorrow if the price goes to 50, and then you are going to say, oh, my reserve estimate has gone down. You cannot do that, right? So these things you have to keep in mind. Reserves are those quantities of petroleum anticipated to be commercially recoverable by application of development projects to known accumulations from a given date forward under defined conditions. Okay, देख रहे हो कितने अच्छे से इसको लिखा हुआ है, हाँ? Each and every word has meaning in this definition. Reserves must satisfy four criteria. That is, it's discovered, it's recoverable, it's commercial, and remaining as of the evaluation's effective date. That is remaining, that not that's produced. Okay. Produced was still your resource. Okay, discovered resource. But if you have produced, it's no longer a reserves. You remember that green band that you had? Okay. So very, very important things. Reserves are recommended as sales quantities as metered at the reference point, where the entity also recognizes quantities consumed in operations as reserves. These quantities must be recorded separately. अब ये देखो, if there is some consumed in operations, let's say you are producing some gas and you are doing some gas injection. Okay, so that is consumed in operation. So that has to be recorded separately. Oh, the question is, how is the base price of reserve estimation estimated? That's a very good question. And it's, what company does is they look at their lifting cost. Okay, how much actually is going to be their lifting cost? Okay, and of course, they are going to look at if the oil price is this, can we still be profitable? Okay, because in the market again, all these costs are variable. Okay, so it is not a very easy task, but based on your experience, when some of the numbers that companies have already, based on that, you may say that, okay, this is what is going to be profitable for me, or I can be in the business. So let's say what I remember in BP, what they used to do is at that time was like if the oil price was, they were taking at around $45 per barrel at that time, 10 years ago, okay, as the base price. Okay, and if something was particularly for US, where you are producing from deep water and all this. Of course, if you are producing something from onshore, then your base price will be a bit lower. Okay, and if you are producing from deep water, of course your base price is going to be quite up. So all these things you have to keep in mind. Okay, it's again, as I said, it's not that simple, but you have to bring in all sorts of factors. Okay, how much it's going, what it's going to take to make it profitable. Okay. Like as I said, when we are doing uncertainty estimate, so I told you, like, if in IRR, company, particularly at that time, Reliance had their kind of IRR cutoff at 27%. Okay, so you have to look at all these different projects and see. Okay. So as reserves, these quantities must be recorded separately. Non-hydrocarbon quantities are recognized as reserves only when sold together with hydrocarbons. Okay, consumed associated with petroleum production. If the non-hydrocarbon is separated before sales, it is excluded from reserves. Now, reserves are further categorized in accordance with the range of uncertainty and should be subclassified based on project maturity and or characterized development and production status. Now, so we looked at reserves and then contingent resources. Okay, classification contingent resources. Basically, contingent resources are those quantities of petroleum estimated as of a given date to be potentially, look at this word, potentially recoverable. Okay, from known accumulation by the application of development projects not currently considered to be potential owing to one or more contingencies. Okay, so that is like contingent upon something. Okay, that is when you are contingent resources. Contingent resources have an associated chance of development. Okay, contingent resources may include, for example, projects for which there are currently no viable markets. Just you have some gas discovery and you do not have market. Contingent upon what? That will become your reserves. Let's say you build a LNG plant. Okay. So if you have now LNG plant, then you can convert that gas into LNG and then export it to other countries. Okay. So where commercial recovery is dependent on technology under development, or where evaluation of the accumulation is insufficient to clearly assess its potentiality. Okay. Contingent resources are further categorized in accordance with the range of uncertainty associated with the estimate and should be subclassified based on maturity and or economic status. Okay. Here is the question is, can unconventional resources said to be contingent? Okay. Now, which unconventional resources you are talking about? Okay. That you have to class, you have to tell which particular, let's say if you are talking about unconventional resource of, let's say, gas sided, okay? Gas sided, of course, you have a lot of resources, but it's not technically recoverable at this time, okay? So, okay. ठीक है? Achha, so the point, but there is a chance provided technology is developed. Yes, if there is technology, okay, so you will have those as resources. But if you completely, say that, well, there is not going to be any technology in future, okay, then that is also how you have, unrecoverable, right? उसके नीचे में क्या था? Unrecoverable, okay, recover कर ही नहीं सकते हैं, चाहे भी discovered undiscovered में दिखाते रहो, हाँ. Now, undiscovered PIIP, petroleum initially in place, is that quantity of petroleum estimated as of a given date to be contained within accumulation yet to be discovered. Okay? Yet to be discovered. Now, prospective resources, ये कौन सा था? नीचे वाला, ये देखो, undiscovered हो गया. अब देखो, इस फिर से इस डायग्राम में देखो, undiscovered resources. डिस्कवर्ड में हम लोगों ने ये दोनों बात किया, सब कमर्शियल, contingent resources बात कर लिया, फिर उसके नीचे unrecoverable, okay. Now उसके नीचे देखो undiscovered, undiscovered में भी तुम्हारा prospective resources and unrecoverable है, तो इसके बारे में देखो थोड़ा. So prospective resources are those quantities of petroleum estimated as of a given date to be potentially recoverable from undiscovered accumulations. Okay, to be potentially recoverable from undiscovered accumulation by application of future development projects. Okay. Prospective resources have both an associated chance of geologic discovery and a chance of development. Prospective resources are further categorized in accordance with the range of uncertainty associated with recoverable estimate, assuming discovery and development, and may be subclassified based on project maturity. समझ में आया कुछ? थोड़ा? So what we'll do is we will again pick up this tomorrow, okay? क्योंकि अभी कुछ ज्यादा हो गया, P90, P10, P50 करते हुए, what is reserves, what is resource, what is contingent resources, कुछ ज्यादा हो गया आज, बहुत सारे terminologies हो गए, है ना? So all these new terminologies that although you had heard, the only thing we are really defining it through Prms guidelines. Okay, so we'll again tomorrow we'll talk about this. There are so many things to talk about. Chalo, bye.